What I'm looking at here is just absolutely phenomenal. It's a community, and it's a community brought together. It's kind of a tight geographic community, but it spans decades. And the connective tissue, the fabric of this community that's here today was Mark Davis and his life and the impact he made on everybody in this room. Thank you for being here. On behalf of Mark's wife, Chrissy, daughter, Alexandria, son, Ryan, mother, Carol, father, Gordon, they're heartfelt thanks for you being here for this celebration of life for Mark Jason Davis. My name is somebody, we've known each other for years, but my name is Steve Henson. I was a friend of Mark's since about 1990, and I'm privileged to be asked to lead off. And then once I'm done fairly quickly, I'll hand it off to the heavy hitters, and then you'll have a chance to say something. The ground rules are loose here, sort of like those new MLB transfer catch rules. So the objective is to honor Mark's life and his accomplishments. You saw photos and trophies and mementos of a life well lived when you walked in. It was uplifting, it's inspiring, and Mark would tell you that none of it would have been possible without the support of his family. Gordon Davis, Mark's father, is in all of Mark's team's pictures as a coach. He taught Mark to pitch. And Mark was blessed with 3 strong, smart, and dare I say, beautiful women in his life. His mother, Carol, his wife, Chrissy, and his daughter, Adam. And then, of course, young man, the man, Ryan. So, let's start the way we would at a ball game when introductions are made. Let's stand and hear it for Carol and Gordon and Chrissy and Abby and Ryan. Please. That outpouring goes a long way toward healing. As a lifelong journalist, I learned that other voices are better than my own. So I sought out folks who knew Mark and listened to what they had to say. I called Mike Scioscia in New York City, where the Angels are playing the Yankees. Mark Davis coached Mike's son, Matt, and Mike gained a tremendous respect for Mark and his knowledge of the game. Mike Scioscia asked me to relay this message. Mark's love for baseball was very evident to everyone around him, but his love for his family and his son Ryan and daughter Abby was truly inspirational. God bless you, Mark. We will miss you. And spoiler alert, Ryan's going to an Angel game soon as a guest of the manager. So, this morning, let's laugh, cry, reflect, remember. Let your minds drift back. Some of you 40 to 50 years of Mark growing up in the West Valley. Others 20 to 30 years ago when the Davises moved to First Agora, then Thousand Oaks, and Mark became such a part of the fabric of this community. And you might have played for him. He gave you pitching lessons, batting lessons, was your coach in the dugout. Others remember the Braves and the Ravens more recently. And then there's still others here to whom Mark Davis taught pitching right up until the day he passed, in his home, in his sleep, unexpectedly and painlessly on January 18th. This isn't a religious ceremony. That doesn't mean you might not feel something spiritual. What I know is what I see, and what I'm looking at are the faces that made Mark Davis's life rich and fulfilling, loving and rewarding. The familiarity from where I'm standing it's more than comforting, it's overwhelming. And I know that the family, you must all feel that way. Just take a look around, you and look at the folks in this room and recognize the depth of the community that we share. It's really what this is all about. So let's recognize you. If you might be 40, you might be 13. If Mark was your coach, or you took baseball lessons from Mark, please stand. And a lot of you are already standing. Let's hear it from Mark's students. That would include a lot of those ball players in the uniform in the back as well. So Mark Davis was a great husband, father, and son. But beyond that, he was a teacher. His classroom was a dirt mound, a bump topped by a slim slab of rubber. He taught you the mechanics of pitching. He taught you preparation. He taught you composure. He taught you how to adjust. He taught you how to compete. And he taught you to respect the game. Several players Mark taught aren't here because they're playing or coaching college or pro ball. That's the reason for the video. We'll download it, they can watch at their leisure and pay their respects. I called a few of them. One is Drew Saberhagen, who took lessons from Mark and played on his Thousand Oaks Little League and travel teams. Now he's the pitching coach at a university in South Carolina. Now think for a second. Drew's father, Brett Saberhagen, was the best pitcher to ever come out of this area. Ever. And Drew learned from his dad. But he also learned a ton from Mark Davis. He'd ask his parents to leave him at the field while Mark gave lessons to other kids just so he could soak it in and to be a friend to Ryan. Here's what Drew Saberhagen told me. Mark and my dad were similar in that they were all about having fun, but at the same time, all about respecting the game and playing the right way. We were 12 to 15-year-old kids, and Mark knew how to make practice and games fun, as well as teaching us to play hard. And Mark always had some unbelievable thing to say to break the huddle before games. A lot of it you can't repeat in public. But we took the field with a sprint and a joy, and we were ready to play. I was given a letter to read as well today by a Ravens player, a lot of you know, named Jordan Hawk. And I'd like to read the letter. Jordan's eyesight is a lot better than mine at this point, and the font he used is a little small, but I'll do my best. Hi everybody, my name is Jordan Hawk, and as Mark used to call me, Jordy. For those of you who don't know, I spent over 10 years straight with Mark playing and learning the art of baseball. Mark Davis was an extremely important figure in my life. When I was 8 years old and I met Mark for the first time, I knew I liked him from the second we were introduced. And I'm sure many of you knew Mark was a hothead. But guess what? So was I. I was able to learn through him how to channel my emotions into the game rather than expressing my emotions in a negative way. He had a demeanor about him that people would not forget after meeting him for the first time, which is why Mark impacted the Thousand Oaks and Ventura County community the way he did. It seemed like within 48 hours of Mark passing that the entire community was in mourning because we know we had lost a man who had impacted so many young men's lives. Mark and me would spend hours every week discussing the perfect mechanics of throwing a baseball. When I was 10 years old, we were not allowed to throw a curveball. And that's when Mark taught me to throw a cut fastball, which helped me take down hitters until the final days of my pitching. He was determined to help me not make the same mistakes he made when he played. I learned a lot of valuable life lessons in that bullpen. Sometimes we wouldn't even pitch. we would just talk for 20 to 30 minutes at a time. Because as Mark always taught me, the mental aspect of the game was far more important than the physical. He always had me playing with kids 2 to 3 years older than me, and I never understood why until now. He wanted me to get better, stronger, faster, and most importantly, more mature. I will forever take the lessons Mark taught me in baseball and life into my everyday work ethic. Mark is very much an impression of who I am today. I now realize that life is very much like baseball. Nothing is given to you unless you work for it, and you can take it. I love you forever, Mark. We all do, Jordan Mark. So that expresses better than what I was going to say next, so I'm going to skip it. And remind some of you will remember this that played for Mark. Mark was unlike most pitching and hitting coaches. He would come to your games and he would yell encouragement from the stands. He wasn't like just giving lessons, and he would never see you play. He wanted to see you compete, and that's why I loved to coach on the field. I remember just a day in 1995 when Mark and I were coaching a t-ball team together that Ryan and my son were playing on in the morning on a Saturday. And both of us also were coaching teenage teams at the time. And I was coaching a ball game, and then we got something to eat. And I said, I got to go over to the TO varsity field for our game. And Mark said, I'll probably see you over there. So we went over there, and we were playing a game. And the pitcher on the other team was someone who I got to know very well later on. But that was the first day I'd seen him. He was from Agora. We were playing a 1,000 Oaks Little League team. This was one of their classic Agora Rangers coming in. And his name was Mike Falco. And he threw hard. He was 15, he threw real hard. And we showed up to the game, and we're getting prepared to hit. And my batters will walk up there to hit, and all of a sudden I hear in the other stands, "Let's go, Falco! Throw strikes, Falco! Throw strike one, Falco! Let's go, Falco!" And I looked up, and it was Mark. And he was rooting for the pitcher pitching against my team after we'd scored. And so between innings, I went over and I just kind of went like this to him, and he had that laugh, you know, that kind of mischievous laugh. And he looked at me and went, and there was nothing left to be said. He was Mike Falco's advocate. He was Mike Falco's guy, and that trumped our friendship for the next 2 hours. So where did Mark's passion for teaching come from? There's an answer, and it's fascinating. I'll give you the outline, then the next speaker, retired LAPD detective and close family friend, Marv Enquist, will provide details. Mark's grandfather, Howie Steinberg, Carol's father, was a legendary boxing trainer who owned the Main Street Gym in downtown LA. This wasn't palm trees and beaches, LA. This was gritty, grimy, Skid Row, LA, straight out of the Tom Waits song. And Howie trained champions there. He was the real-life inspiration for the trainer in the Rocky movies played by Burgess Meredith. Mark hung out at the gym. He loved his grandfather and learned from him. In 1977, when Mark was 15, Howie Steinberg was murdered at age 72. Remains one of the tragic, unsolved homicides in LA history, right up there with the Block Valley. For the family, obviously, it was devastating. But Mark grew up to be a trainer, just like his grandfather, didn't he? Only the sport was different. As a pitching coach, Mark was like a trainer in your corner. You might have gotten knocked around, but after an hour with him on the bump, in the cage, in his backyard, you were ready to answer the bell. So I'd like to introduce the next speaker, Marv Enquist. Tom?
Thank you for that, Steve. You're a hard act to follow. He told you that I was the LAPD homicide detective assigned to investigate the murder of Carol's father, and it remains unsolved. It's like being introduced as the captain of the Titanic. Ship song. In truth, I was a personal friend of mine and acquaintance, and I used to stop into the Main Street Gym and say hello to him. And I was also curious as to who was there being trained and preparing for fights, championship fights. Every champion of any worth went through the Main Street Gym. And on the day of his work that very afternoon, I stopped in to see Howard that very day. Ultimately, later, you'll find that I was assigned to investigate this killing. And with all the cases that I had in all the years that I worked on LAPD, it was a tragedy that this case was never solved. Hopefully, it will be solved. There's things that are still alive and percolating now to perhaps lead to a solution. I sure hope so. I really do. At times like today, many times, the words fail to adequately describe and honor a person such as Mark. Sometimes they become sad times, but today is not one of those. Today is a celebration of Mark's life, and this is our opportunity to share things together about Mark. Some of these things you already know, some of them you probably don't. There may never be enough words or accolades to describe this man adequately, but we'll all try. We'll do our best. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mark Nicholas, and for the past 38 years, I've known Carol Steiner, Mark's mom. And she would call him Marky, Mark's mom. And through her, I met Mark. Eventually, I was privileged to meet his lovely wife and 2 children. I also met his father, Gordon, sitting over here in the front, and I was honored to do so. His 2 children are wonderful. Chrissy's a wonderful lady. They were married for 28 years. And as you now know, Carol and I happened to meet because of another tragedy which occurred to her father on March 9, 1977. Since that time, as Steve pointed out, Carol and family have moved 3 times because I live out in Orange County. Every time she moved, it was further out. And it was a burden sometimes to come by. She called or needed something, but I did every time. And so for 38 years, we've shared a professional association as well as a personal one through good times and bad times. She relied on me as a friend to help her with difficulties for the past 38 years. And from this association, I met Mark. And he and I had a special friendship. We shared this friendship for many years, and I was privileged to know him. I watched his development from afar as a teenager, and when he was in school, and development as a baseball player, and other people will tell you about his baseball playing. But one of the things that I remember about Mark is that one day, not unlike many days, I received a phone call from Carol. She was hysterical. It was in a panic phone call. As I recall, Mark and some of his friends had been stopped by the police, found an open container of beer in their possession. Oh yeah, the boys were minors. There were several boys there that were involved, and there was one open beer apparently, and so thus one boy would be going to jail, where his parents would be called to come pick him up. And being a stand-up young man, even in his young years, Mark took the blame. Carol was torn between realizing that Mark wasn't the sharpest crayon in the box, and he could have very well blamed one of the other boys. But he nonetheless took responsibility. In fact, one of the other boys were with us here today. Nice to see you. Still wearing a striped shirt, but Carol was was acting as though this whole episode was a major felony event. And she could see him going to jail for doing what most of us would likely have done ourselves. She was equally upset that Mark volunteered to take the blame for this, and I assured her that Mark would not go to the electric chair for doing it. Made another drive out to the valley. I went to the police station, responded over there, and had Mark released and made the incident go away. And from then on, Mark believed, I think, that I would help him with his difficulties as he went through life. I've done this for his mother, and so he thought, well, whenever the need arises, I need to talk to somebody, I'm going to call Mark. And for many years, Mark did. And over the years, we would talk about a lot of things personally with Mark. And he would confide in me as a friend and a mentor, someone that was non-judgmental, that he could talk to me, share anything with me, and so Mark was, in my eyes, developing into a very fine young man. And although Carol and Mark's father were no longer together, Carol and Gordon were much involved in Mark's life. They co-parented and raised Mark. And they were very involved in Mark's development in baseball. Very much so. Gordon was a coach. Carol was the team mother. Only recently I found out she wanted to be a team mother to ensure any after-game beverages were non-alcoholic. You'll hear from others today about Mark attending high school in Elkhorn High. He graduated there in 1980. He went on to College of the Canyons. He graduated from there too. He was a goal-oriented achiever. He achieved the goals he set. He was a baseball player. Received a scholarship to Sacramento State. He was a pitcher, and a very good one. Drafted, as you know, by the New York Mets, played professional ball. After his ball playing days, that you'll hear about from others, were over, and he returned home. Mark returned to teach baseball to others. Many of you are here today. A guy named William Arthur Ward once said, "A mediocre teacher tells, and a good teacher explains. A superior teacher demonstrates. A great teacher inspires." Mark was a great teacher, as evidenced by many of you here, inspiring you to do your best in baseball and in life. He was an inspiring teacher. Many of his students became Major League Baseball players. Some are here with us today. He knew baseball. He even, besides teaching, coached. He gave his life to baseball, teaching and training and helping others, and was even fortunate enough to coach the Little League World Series champion team. The guy we all know, Winston Churchill, said, "We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give." If that is the measure of success, Mark was very successful because he gave himself unselfishly and he shared his knowledge. So I remember Mark made more than he ever took. When Mark did share some of his personal accomplishments, it was never to elevate himself, but always to shine the light of achievement on others. A generous man. He was known by many titles. Steve pointed out, son, husband, dad, coach, friend, winner, teacher, among others. For those of you here who knew Mark, it was an honor to do so. For those of you who did not know him personally, I'm hopeful that one day, a man of his character will cross your path. You'll be better off for it. My sincere heartfelt wishes go out to Mark's family. I wish to extend my personal sympathy to Mark's mother, Carol, his father, Gordon, daughter, Alex, and his son, Ryan. Mark was very proud of his family, very proud. He loved Chrissy. He was proud of her, having even been honored herself. Winning titles of Miss Greater Los Angeles and Miss Pasadena for her physical beauty. She is a beautiful woman. She's a hard worker, beautiful woman, a great mother, and a provider. Mark mentioned many times of being very proud of his daughter Alex, and how he so wanted her to finish law school and become successful. Now, she's doing that. She's vibrant, energetic, she's earned many scholastic honors already, and I'm sure that she will be successful. And he also loved his son, Ryan, who sent this loss of Mark. It's called me several times to visit. Several times. Ryan is a remarkable young man. He's my buddy. It seems like the council has come full circle. Carol, Mark, and now Ryan. And I welcome that opportunity, and I invite Ryan to call me anytime you want to. 24/7. Ryan is always smiling. Right now he's smiling. He's eager to smile, and he has much to offer. Say hello to Ryan later on today. I'm sure you will agree. On behalf of Mark's family, they've asked me to thank each and every one of you for being here today. You have helped them through a very difficult time. Your generosity by sharing your time is a great tribute to Mark. Your attendance has provided comfort and peace for the family, and it is very much appreciated. Thank you for the opportunity. Just make some remarks about the observations and things that I had for Mark myself. Now, Steve mentioned to you that Mark hung around the Main Street Gym, and Moxie Gym. And matter of fact, I think his grandfather, how he had him punching a big heavy bag down there by age 2. After Howie's death, Mark's mother, Carol, who knew absolutely nothing about boxing except the fact that her father did not want her out of the gym, took over the operation of the Main Street Gym. She became the proprietor and immersed herself in boxing. Mark's interest was in baseball, not boxing, which is a good thing. But Carol became accomplished in many areas of the boxing industry. She was the first woman to operate a boxing gym. She was a boxing manager and had female fighters before they became vogue like they are today. She worked in a corner in fights that were put on at the forum. She had many accomplishments in boxing before retiring that were recognized, in fact, by her election to the Boxing Hall of Fame. Very accomplished. And in that regard, we have representatives here today, including the president of the Golden State Boxing Association, Bill Dempsey Young, and his wife Linda, who are going to follow me here in a moment. I'd like to introduce you to them. And they're here to pay tribute to Mark, the world of boxing, with a long-standing boxing tradition. Bill will explain that to you. Bill. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Mark, I'm kind of in need of a father figure now. Are you interested? I'm Bill Dempsey Young, president of the Golden State Boxing Association. We're dedicated to keeping alive the memory of our ex-fighters, but not just the fighters, trainers, managers, gym owners, even fans. It's a great organization. We've been around since the late 60s. Willie Bean was one of our original members. And Don Frazier, ex-president, is right here with us, current president of California's Boxing Hall of Fame. Now, I was born into a boxing family. So, this is, as Carol was, born into a boxing family, and it becomes part of it. And I had a boxing career of my own, kind of a neat little amateur boxing career. I was successful. I consider very successful boxing career. I was known for being able to get up really quick. And my nose was only broke once, so I consider that a success for me. So we're going to do the 10 count for Mark here. And what the 10 count, it's a tradition that anyone in the boxing world, when someone significant in the boxing world has been lost, but they do a 10 count for them. And like I said, anyone born into a family, such as Carol's, Howie, anyone connected there, grows up in the boxing world and it becomes part of it. So that's the reason for the 10 count for Mark. By the way, this is a prized possession of mine. This is an antique belt. Anytime I can hold anything that's older than me, it gives me some kind of security. And my wife gave this to me as a gift some years back. And so that's why it's in this condition. I'm very proud of this. May Mark rest in peace.
That was really awesome. I'm sure for most of you unexpected, and with to have the boxing community and those legends here is just phenomenal. A lot of what Marv said, I was just going to do a quick bio before we get into speakers that knew Marv as a child, as a teenager, and then through adulthood. As Mark mentioned, Mark grew up on the West Valley, went to El Camino Real High School, and pitched on the varsity. And I wanted to relate something again that was told to me by somebody else. Mark's lifelong close friend and teammate, Jason Felice, who's here, had this to say about Mark as a pitcher, as a high school pitcher. And they played together at college at the Canyons. The bigger the situation, the better he was. A lot of heart. Mark threw a sinker, a slurve, and a high arc curve. Real sneaky, crafty, great intuition on how to change speeds and beat a guy. Jason Felice transferred from El Camino Real to Reseda High and faced Mark. First pitch, Mark threw at Jason's head, his best friend, and laughed right after he did it. And Jason didn't think it was funny, but that's what he got for transfer. And that night they had a double date and all was forgotten. Growing up, Mark's house was the place to be. He had several close buddies, and our next speaker is one of them, a lifelong friend of Mark Davis, Ryan Norvik.
Friends, we all need them. We all have them. But special friends, they're hard to find. They're like a winning team. Something just clicks. Can't make it happen. It just does. Mark and I had that more than 40 years. It all started at baseball school. I remember our talks on the mound. Mark pitching, me in the infield. We kept each other focused and smiling. I was lucky to have Gordon, Mark's dad, as a coach for a few seasons. It kept our friendship growing, and we had fun 24/7. Gordon was a great coach, and like a second father to me at the time. Thank you, Gordon. And Carol, Mark's mom, when I think of you, I just smile. I love you, and I thank you for all the memories you gave Mark. I remember Catalina like it was yesterday. Hanging out at the house, going to the Main Street gym, the sleepovers, all the talks. Thank you so much, Carol, for all those memories. I would come back to the Davis's house, and I would say, just blend in and do what the Davises do. It was easy because Chris is such a good cook, and I was leaving it alone. Thanks, Chris. Mark coached a lot of good teams, but the best team was the Davis team. You may have thought it was the Ravens or the Bombers, but it wasn't. It was the Davis team. Sorry. And once in a while, I got to play and be part of the Davis team. Chrissy, you are the super glue that holds the Davis team together. You're the MVP, and you'll always be the #1 mom to me. 2 days before Mark got called up, we had one of our dogs on the mound. Mark was focused and smiling. We thought we were in the 6th inning. We had no idea we were in the bottom of the 9th. We were talking about the future and how bright it is for the 2 stars of the Davis team, Alex and Ryan. Your dad is so proud of both of you. I wish you could have heard our conversation that night. It was great. Ryan, you make me happy. You make me smile. And I'm so glad I'm your Uncle B. Alex, you make me proud. You make me confident about the future because you're in it. I love you. We're all here today to celebrate Mark's life. I've been celebrating it for 40 years plus. Every time Mark had an accomplishment, it felt like it was mine. I've been a fan since we were kids. Teammates forever. I love you, Mark Davis. Thank you.
You've heard Mark's daughter named Alexandria, Alex, and Abby. She does, in fact, go by all three. Next is another close friend of Mark's since childhood. You guys wearing Lancer uniforms know him as Jack Rosenberg's dad. To Mark and his family, he's always been Uncle Mike, Mike Rosenberg.
First of all, Mark, it wasn't just a can of beer, it was Old English 800. And I'm happy to say that I had absolutely nothing to do with it. Friday night, I had the privilege of watching my son and all those boys back there play a fantastic baseball game where they won, beat the Newbury Park Panthers. And it was a very exhausting game for me. I was working up a sweat and pacing back and forth. And I got in bed late that night and fell asleep. And I had this premonition that Mark was talking to me.
And he told me that he wanted to tell Alex and Ryan how proud he was of them, and that he loved Gracie. He wanted me to tell the Lancers how proud he was of them. He said that he wanted to tell Jack and Bailey how proud he was of them and how far they've come. And he said, and don't forget to tell Jimmy how proud I am. Jimmy, raise your hand, kid. He also wanted me to pass on a message to you Dodger fans. They do have the Dodger channel on in heaven. So he's able to watch the Dodgers, which is more than we're able to do. So I met Mark in the cusp of going from the 4th to the 5th grade. And I've known him ever since. And I can go on and on and on and on and on about experiences that I had with him. And I'll share a few of them with you, if you don't mind. But I want this to be about friendship. How important friendship is in a man's life. As I was thinking about what I wanted to say, I got a magazine in the mail that I share with my son. It's called The Men's Journal. And it's all about things that men do. Clothing, cars, Navy SEALs, etc., etc., etc. And I took a break, and I noticed that in here, there's a story about the value of friendship in a man's life. And it says that more important than diet or exercise in a man's longevity is close friends. I've been blessed with 4 close friends in my life. 2 of them are here today. One of them couldn't make it, and one of them is in heaven watching us all today. I look at those Lancers in the back there, including Kyle, who's a Newbury Park Panther. And you guys, I know it's hard to imagine right now, but your guys are like a Milky Way. You're a friendship factory for me right now. And a really, really, really good friend is like a tattoo. It wants to do whatever you want to do. It's happy when you're happy. Your best friends become a fabric of your life. They become a part of your everyday world. And they're really hard to come by. I've been blessed with a lot of good things in my life. But I can't think of anything more valuable than a very close friend. And Mark was one of them. Priceless in every way. Friendship isn't about a perfect friend. It's about a perfect friendship. To be a really close friend, you have to love the pluses and the minuses. It all goes together. It's what makes a friend. The little quirks we have only make the positives better. And it's my hope that someday, 40 years from now, you guys in the back can have the same kind of friendship that Mark and I have. you will be truly blessed. About 7 years ago, I ran into a health issue. I was put on a respirator, and all my friends, came to see me, and I guess there was one day when the doctor said it was time to put her shut up. So they took me off the respirator, and I looked to my right, and there was my friend Mark Davis, with his right elbow on his knee biting his fingernails. And his wife, my dear friend Chrissy, was sitting on the bed clipping my fingernails. And I woke up. When Mark moved in up the street from me, my brother and I went to meet him. Moved in like 8 houses up, thereabouts. And we became friends. And in the 5th grade, he was in my class with Mrs. Thie. And it was then I was quickly pulled into the dark side. I was a really good kid. And I just lost control. I tried hard to resist Mark, but in the end it was futile. So the teacher asked for volunteers. In the day we didn't have videos, we had reel-to-reel film. A film projector. And so Mark and I volunteered. And every Wednesday in the morning, before nutrition, Mark and I would walk around the school, and our teacher gave us vivid instructions. Collect the 5th grade films and we'll watch them today. But that would have only taken up about 45 minutes of the day, and that would mean that Mark and I would have had to learn something the rest of the day. That just wasn't suitable. So Mark and I spent about an hour going around the school, and we collected 4th grade films, 5th grade films, and 6th grade films. We pretty much had the day covered. And I'd string the film on, and we'd watch film all day. And it was just great times until his mother and the principal walked in one rainy night, rainy afternoon. Found Mark and I across the room from each other throwing checker pieces at each other, frisbees. And I was, for the first time in my life, in trouble. And escorted to the principal's office by my ear. In the 6th grade, something weird was happening to us. We were growing up. And Mark and I were in the 6th grade together with an evil man named Mr. Lusk. And he had this nasty habit of calling individual kids to come up to the chalkboard and do long division in front of the rest of the class, which was a very, 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 very embarrassing thing for Mark and I. A lot of numbers, a lot of bad things could happen. But he kept doing it, so one day, I reached underneath my desk, and I had a little bowl full of candy, Now or Laters, and Jolly Ranchers, and a pack of juicy fruit gum. And I tore a piece of gum in half and put it in my mouth and chewed it as best I could. And right before Mark was called, he said, "Give me the gum." And I handed it to him in his palm of his hand, and as he walked by the teacher's desk to the chalkboard, dropped the gum on the teacher's chair. About 30 minutes later, after he embarrassed everybody in the class, he came and sat down on his chair, and for the rest of the day, he had a glob of juicy fruit gum on the seat of his pants. It was during that time that Mark taught me about women, girls. I was kind of partial to this gal named Kim Kennedy, nice Jewish gal. And I need to remind you that when I was young, I had very big, very ugly glasses. And out of the blue, Mark leans over and says, "Hey, Binzel, I think you should give Kim a kiss today at lunch." "Okay," I said. "All right, I can handle that." And so after lunch, I was walking back with Kim, who was kind of a cross between Pippi Longstockings and... So I stopped her and I leaned over to give her a kiss. And to my surprise, she leaned back to give me a kiss. It was kind of like, you know, those birds in the nest with the mouth open waiting for the mother to talk. And right as we were about to make contact together, I felt two hands reach behind my head and pull my glasses off. And it was Mark Davis. And we made contact. It was my first kiss. And when we got back to the classroom, he leans over and he says, "Binzel, how was it?" And I said, "Well, you know, it was pretty good. But you took my glasses off, so I couldn't see anything." And he looked at me with utter contempt and says to me, "Don't you know that you're always supposed to close your eyes when you kiss a woman?" No, I did not know that. But thank you. Mark Davis was the worst driver in the state of California. That man should never have been allowed to drive the streets of California. And one rainy afternoon, my brother and I were in the back seat of Borden's Cadillac, and Mark was directly in front of me driving. Borden was in the front passenger seat, and we were stopped at Burbank getting ready to make a left on Valley Circle. And the streets were wet, as I said. And Mark only knew one speed, all the way to the floor. And he put his foot all the way to the floor as the wheel was turned sharply to the left. And as we made it to Valley Circle, we started fishtailing. And I'm right behind Mark, and all I could see from behind was his elbows going like this. We ended up stopping on the side of an ivy-filled hill. And Borden was so pissed. And he got out of the car, Borden, and slipped and fell, boom, right down on his face. It was very wet, like what happened. And instead of walking behind the car around to the driver's seat to get the car unstuck from the side of the hill, for some reason he climbed over the hood, which made the matter even worse as he was slowly putting dents in the hood of his brand new Cadillac. Borden got in the car and he pulled the car off the hill and drove down Valley Circle to pick up Ryan. and Borden honked the horn and was yelling expletives. And he got out of the car and grabbed Brian's hose out front and started hosing out the front of his car. There was a mud clod on the front of that Cadillac that went from headlight to headlight. It had to be a 400-pound mud clod. Maybe 2 or 3 months later, I was in my room looking out at Gilmore Street, and I hear this engine roar down the hill. And it's Mark, my friend Bob, and his brother in Mark's Pontiac, 67 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am. And as he went by my window, I saw the back end of the car sliding to the left, and a horrible skidding sound. When I ran out the front door, I found Mark's car, again stuck on the side of an ivy-filled hill. All the wheels were broken from hopping over the curb, but that was Mark. One day, my sister took Mark and I and her boyfriend, Danny, to the Fabulous Forum to see Electric Light Orchestra in concert. Now, I wasn't too keen on the word orchestra, I was into Black Sabbath, Paranoid, Queen, Night of the Opera, that kind of thing, so orchestra kind of scared me, but we sat down in our seats and out comes this band with neon cellos and neon colored violins and lasers going off, and they started to play. And they were fantastic. I've never heard anything like it in my life. And after the second song, with my Coke bottle glasses, I couldn't help to notice that the forum was filling up with smoke. A lot of smoke. Bad smoke. And so I kind of leaned over to Mark and I said, "Hey, I think the place is going to burn down." And I don't hear anything. And so I look over, and there's Mark reclined in his seat with his eyes half open. And he looks at me and he says, "Hey, just sit back and listen to the concert, would ya?" But that was our life together. We went through highs and lows. I never, ever saw anybody get rained on more than Mark did. But I never heard Mark ever complain. I never heard him say he felt sorry for himself. He was always happy to see me every day. And I'm going to miss him. And I just want to say, Mark, thank you for everything.
Hello, everybody. I think Mark is looking down right now, smiling, seeing all these people here. But I think he's got a bigger smile on the people, because the people that aren't here, those are the guys that are still playing at the highest levels of baseball or coaching. His players. And I think that he is so proud of the fact that they're not here because they could not be here. I first met Mark when I was coaching a Little League team called the Dodgers, and Mark came to a lot of our practices, and he loved what he saw. He just said, wow, I've never seen Little League teams do this before. They're doing fundamentals, and they're really drilling the kids. And that's how our collaboration started. And it was Mark that ended up pushing me towards doing all-star teams for Thousand Oaks Little League. I'll never forget getting that last message from Mark a few weeks before he died, and it was always the same message. Eddie, MD here, call me back. I knew when I got that message, there was something special that he was going to tell me. And that last message that he left, I called him back, and he's always, every single time, talked about his family. He loved his family. Then he would talk about baseball, but he would never exclude the people that were closest in his life. And we started talking about, hey, what were your favorite teams during the 1990s? And of course, two of them stood out as a group of kids that were very special. He loved all his kids, but the teams that he loved the most during that time was the team that won the World Championship in 1994, and also another team that was what we call the hard luck team. Very, very talented, and some of them are here today. Cody Cipriano was on that team, Matt Ricardo, Drew Saberhagen. And they went on to have great careers, and he loved them. But since this is the 20-year anniversary of winning a world championship, I'm going to talk about a couple stories that pretty much sums up Mark and the relationship he had with his players. In 1994, it was our first tournament. We were playing a team that was not that good. But a lot of you players out there, you know what it's like to play down to a team. And that's exactly what happened against this team we were playing. We were losing 2-1 in like the fourth inning of a seven-inning game, and we were just not playing good. Then suddenly one thing happened, and it sparked this team. I think either Matt Rogers or Chris Palomares was at the plate, and the pitcher hit him. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, here's Mark going, "Yeah, we love it! Yeah, do it again! Yeah, yeah!" And I was looking at him like, whoa! He was always like me in the dugout, low-key. I mean, we looked like we were bored. And here is this guy with bugged eyes going nuts. And then Wes Munyon comes to the plate. And there's one guy you don't want to hit, is Wes Munyon. Because there is a fierce competitor. And guess what? The guy hit him. Wrong guy. And there goes Mark again. Yeah, we love it. Keep doing it. Hit the next guy. Hit them all. Yeah, yeah. And I'm just like in total shock. The whole team just looked and perked up, and all of a sudden there was light in this team. Then this one coach who was on the other side of the fence was going, hey man, you gotta settle down. And Mark looks at him and goes, there's a reason we're on this side of the fence and you're on that side of the fence. And I'm just going, a day later I talked to Mark, do you remember talking to that coach? And he goes, what coach? You were yelling and screaming at this guy like you wanted to kill him. I said, no, I don't. I mean, he was so into that moment. That was Mark, the competitor. And it inspired our team when it needed that boost, because it's not easy winning a world championship. And you have a lot of tough games, a lot of close ones, and you need that kind of a spark during the game, and that's what he did. And I think a lot of our players that are here today probably understand what I'm talking about. The other side of Mark, I'll relate to it, the same group of kids, but 2 years later, they were 14 and 15-year-olds. And we had the same group, except for Chris Cordero joined them, and he was kind of like the virgin on the team. And he was like, his eyes lit up every time he saw this team just turn it on. And he was a big part of that team, but he had never gone through something like this before. Well, we finally made it to the World Series, and they put us up in this Fleabag hotel. I mean, National Little League is probably pretty cheap, and they put us in this hotel, and there was really nothing for these guys to do. So we made sure the kids were in bed by 11, and left them there, and we said, okay, we're going to go back to our rooms, and we went to sleep. Well, I started to go to sleep, and anybody knows me, I've slept through 2 earthquakes. Nothing's going to wake me up. Mark went to sleep, and we never thought anything of it. Well, somebody got an idea from the team that it would be nice to call some exotic dancers. So somebody did, and of course, this exotic dancer came over and saw a bunch of 14 and 15-year-old kids and wanted the money up front. They said, okay, I don't know who was there doing what, but they said, okay, and they closed the door. And they all hid in the bathroom. Well, she knocked a couple more times, no answer, and let's just say that she called up her business associate. He was a little less subtle. He started going, boom, 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 you better open up this door now. I mean, that woke Mark up. So I was still out, and he's trying to settle the guy down, you know. Ooh, hold on. Finally, he got him settled down, and he gave him $100, and the guy finally left. And Mark wasn't too happy about that. And the next morning, when I talked to him about the incident, I go, "You're joking. No, you did not happen." He goes, "Yes, it did. I'm out $100." And I go, "Look, Tim Heine's the president. Bill him. He'll pay for it. Trust me. Just put it under an entertainment cost." Well, and then he just couldn't get over it. So I finally started to talk to him, and I go, "Look, Mark, look at it this way. When you become a head coach of a team, if you can deal with Guido, the killer pimp, down, you can overcome anything in a game with any umpire." And he looked at me and he goes, "Okay." But those were the two sides of Mark as he related to players. He could be the competitor on one side, and he can be the rational negotiator on the other. And he just knew how to push the button of every single player. Some players needed the, yeah, let's go! And some of them needed, just relax, man. You're all right. You get it done here. Not a big deal. And that's what made him a great coach. And later on, when he took his own teams, he would coach some of the greatest players in this area. He knew how to handle every situation in the game as a head coach also. I've got many of those stories to tell. But guess what? I just got a message on my machine in my head. It's going, "Eddie, MD here." So I'm going to have to go right now. He's telling me another story. Thank you.
Handing Ed the cordless mic was a good call. Ed mentioned players that aren't here because they're still playing ball, they can't be here. Those are obviously some of the very best players that Mark coached. And I happen to have a list. And I'm going to go down it real quick. These are current players playing affiliated baseball that Mark Davis gave lessons to or coached on one of his Ravens teams. Christian Yelich, Westlake High, left fielder on the Marlins. Delvin Young, Camarillo High, the Phillies. Jared Weaver, Simi Valley High, obviously Angels starter. Zach Thornton, Oak Park High, AAA pitcher with the Pirates. Andrew Lambo, Newbury Park High, AAA outfielder with the Pirates. Danny Muno, Canary Valley Little League, Mets, AAA second baseman, shortstop. Matt Sosha, who was just traded the other day for Wayne Gretzky's son. It was a classic trade that made all the papers because it was Mike Sosha's son traded for Gretzky's son. Jet Bandy, Thousand Oaks High, Angels AA catcher. Jeff Johnson, Thousand Oaks High, Cleveland Indians AA pitcher. Chad Smith, TO High, Detroit Tigers AA pitcher. Cody Paquel, Rangers, Royal High School, Rangers, Class A pitcher. Jack Martyr, Newbury Park High, Mariners, AA player. Jimmy Sherfy, Newbury Park High, Diamondbacks Class A pitcher. Jimmy Churphy's father, Brad, is our next speaker. He brings the perspective of being a personal coach, just like Mark and his grandfather. Brad Churphy's sport is golf. He was the coach at UCLA for many years and is the teaching pro at Moore Park Country Club. Jimmy played for the Ravens and took pitching lessons from Mark, and then started at Newbury Park High in Oregon before being drafted by the Diamondbacks. Brad Churphy.
Well, thank you very much. It's really an honor to be here. Bob Cohen and I were talking earlier, and he said if we had a celebration of life, we could hold it in an elevator. So that this is pretty impressive, all the people that are here. Mark was a great teacher, a great coach, a great mentor, a great friend. The first time I met Mark, my son was, I guess, 8, and unlike Gordon, I didn't know how to teach him to pitch. So we needed some help, and Mark's name kept coming up. And so we went to the lesson with Mark, and the first thing he talked about was keeping your arm healthy, and you got an armband, and my son still uses an armband 14 years later. We talked about drills, gave him several drills, and then later gave him more. And he continued to do these drills for 14 years, still does them. I loved his teaching because it was fundamentals, it was simple, and you pounded it, and you pounded it, and you pounded it home. And you got better at it, and you got better at it. But it was never a new thing. It was always the fundamentals. It was get home, 14 years, getting home. And that's how kids get better, and that's how kids can make adjustments, and that's how kids have a foundation to go back to, under pressure situations. And then that first lesson, he showed my kid how to finish as a pitch, how to tilt over and finish down. And at the time, I'm watching this, and I'm hearing this pop from this glove. I mean, he's throwing it harder. I had a gun a week earlier, and he was 39 miles an hour at 8 years old. But I'm hearing this pop, and I'm getting more excited than either one of them, I think. And so when I knew he was the guy immediately. I mean, I heard the pop of the glove, I knew he was our guy. And he was our guy for the next 14 years. But I got a gun a couple of weeks later by chance. The guy had a gun at 46. I mean, in 15 minutes, he goes from 39 to 46. That's a true story. Sorry. Yeah, so I've got a lot to be thankful for looking out for Mark. Going to the Ravens. 2 years later after that, he started up, with his, I believe it was his last Ravens team. And he had great teams in the past. And he drew, I think it was 11 kids from all over the Canal Valley. Calabasas, Segura, Westlake, Thousand Oaks, Camarillo, Moore Park. So he grabbed guys from up and down the Canal Valley, and then we played for several years together. And of those kids, they shifted around a little bit, so we ended up probably having 16 or 17 kids on the team. And I've got, in my head, figured out like 10 of those had college scholarship, 9 in Division I, 4 are still playing pro ball, 1's in the bigs. And Mark was our leader. I mean, he was fun to be around. He was a great guy. Sorry. So that's when I first saw the competitiveness in him. And as a teacher, and watching him teach, he was certainly very, mellow and giving information and this and that. And once we got on the field, it was like, wow, he turned into a different guy. And the kids weren't that old, they were like, I think it was 10, 9 or 10. And one of the first games, Mark said, not a very good word, I think it was a BS word. And the kids were like, they were a little upset. And so they came home and my son said, hey, the coach said, he said a bad word. What are we going to do about this? So we said, well, look, he's your coach, and he's just getting ready for high school and college. Don't worry about it. But he would be in the third base dugout and yelling, no walks, no 2-out walks. I mean, he'd be getting crazy. But it was great. The kids loved it. The kids got motivated by it. The kids learned to be competitive. It was a great team. I think our last year we were, don't quote me, it's something like 47-8. We won a bunch of games. We won a bunch of tournaments. And he was the one that led us into the battle. He was the one that got the competitive juices flowing. And he was a terrific, terrific guy. He taught the kids many, many things. And, whether it was how to turn a double play, blah, 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 right? All the nuances of baseball, right? And I wonder, as I was thinking about the little talk I was going to give, how many things did he teach these kids? That you won't. You don't even know. You don't even know. The things he's taught these kids. And my kid was pitching the other day, and there was a batter in the box, and he goes into his motion, and the guy backs out at the last minute they call time. He still throws a pitch, no pitch. And he gets back up on the mound. The kid gets back in the box. And my son walks off the back of the mound. And he stares at the hitter for about 4 seconds. And my wife, Jenny, turns to me and says, that's Mark Davis. I said, what do you mean? He goes, that's what Mark taught Jimmy. He said, if a guy does that to you, that's your mound, that's your play. You pitch it when you pitch it. It's your time. When he backs out on you, you do one of two things. You dot the guy, hit him, or you back off the mound, you make him wait, you step up, and you pitch at your own time. And I'm sure there's so many things like that I don't even know, So, he was, a coach and a teacher and a mentor to my kid. And I'll always appreciate that. And I appreciate the Davis family. We love you very, very much. And we always will. We love Mark. And I just thank God that I had an opportunity to, be a part of his life. He was a great teacher. He was a great coach. He was a great mentor. He was a great friend.
It's because I thought you weren't 50 yet, so congratulations. Marty Slimmick, 20 years at Cal Lutheran. Mario Porto, resurrecting the Moore Park College program. Tom Ginther, Conejo Valley Little League World Series champion, Howard Oaks Christian. Vern Merrill, Conejo Oaks director and director of everything in Newbury Park. Kelly Paris, MLB player and superb hitting coach. Joe Garcia, TO High School pitching coach. Scott Gruden, longtime high school coach at Newbury Park, Chaminade. Butch Wilson, TO JV coach and dad of MLB shortstop Jack Wilson. Chuck Brown, still the Energizer Bunny, TO Frosh coach. Rick Nathanson and Newbury Park right-hand man by way of Calabasas. Mike Sheehan, big league giant and the player's favorite coach. Wayne Smith, Cardinal Scout Team Coach and grade hitting instructor. Chuck Fick, Cardinal Scout Team Leader, man, I'll get you signed. And Jason Felice, Mark Davis's dear friend, big-time slugger, and hitting coach. And one more into our next speaker, Matt Goldfield, head coach at Newbury Park High School, 2 years removed from his CIF championship, and besides Jason Felice, maybe the only person here who batted against Mark Davis.